My connection to Kawainui Marsh starts a very long time ago when I was a kid. And that was back in the late 50s, early 60s when we used to call this a swamp. It was called a swamp, Kawainui Swamp. It was not called a marsh. And my first intrusion was as kids exploring this vast waterway, both Kailipulu Marsh and Kawainui Marsh. And back then, we didn't really realize or understand what this represented in terms of the historical continuing presence of the Hawaiian people, its importance to the ecosystem. It just was a fun place to be at that time. So we had a lot of fun, played in the mud, had mango fights and all of that. It really wasn't until later when a consciousness began to develop that came through the early beginnings of what was called the Hawaiian Renaissance, and the discussions of identity running through my own narrative, my own voice running through my head, talking about and asking who I am, and what does it mean to be a Hawaiian person at that time. And my consciousness grew in depth and breadth, and I began to get involved in hula in the 70s, but also I began to become involved in malama aina of places of importance, vahipana, legendary places of importance to our people. And that eventually led me back to the marsh and the work that was being done here to restore the native ecosystem. So that was in the 90s. And that was the very beginnings of Ahahui Malama Ikalokahi. Doc Burrows was the founder. I was not there at the very beginning, but I joined Ahahui a couple of years after they started, and became involved in Kawainui. And as we have spent time here, the relationship between myself and the land, the Aina, has become more clear. And our kuleana, our obligation, our responsibility to steward the land has become my own personal kuleana as well. So I'm here now fulfilling that responsibility. If you look around the entire rim of Kawainui, and you look at the interior parts of Kawainui right now, there is very little evidence of a native lowland forest, a true native lowland forest. You're only really going to find that here at Napuhaku, and work we've done at Ulupo in Lo'i. But everything you see here, almost everything you see here, is an invasive plant. And our vision is to, well, let me say the marsh is at great risk right now. It is at great risk. You have that floating mat out there. That floating mat is about 6 feet thick. And on that floating mat, trees are starting to spread. That is a real threat to Kawainui. That floating mat needs to be removed. The trees need to be removed, and we don't remove those trees, in 10 years, 15 years, we're going to have a swamp. We're not going to have what's called a marsh, which is mainly grasses. We're going to have a swamp, which is predominantly trees. So we're at great risk on the interior of Kawainui. We're at great risk on the perimeter of Kawainui. So what you see here, the vision for Kawainui is to look at what we've done at Napuhaku. These are all native plants here. They've matured over the years, so we have the different layers of canopies of a forest. We have the high canopy, the lower canopy, brush, ground cover. To see that environment all the way around the rim. So we would like to be able to be unleashed and to lead the community in that effort to restore the entire perimeter of Kawainui. On the interior of Kawainui, what we need to do is to, again, remove those invasive species. This round circle you see here, that is growing very quickly. That is increasing in diameter very, very quickly. That's Egyptian papyrus. And that is another threat too. And it's actually about 8 feet tall. You can't tell from here, but it's 8 feet tall. That is a threat. We need to clear the mat, we need to clear out the invasive species, we need to get rid of the trees, and we need to restore both the bird ponds, which DOFA has already started to do. We have created our own bird habitat down here, and we have native birds in the bird habitat. But we'd also like to restore the local ia, the fish pond. This was at one time the largest, one of the largest fish ponds in all of Hawaii. We would like to take a portion, and exactly which portion that is needs to be determined through a kuka discussion amongst both the cultural practitioners and the scientists. It'll be a perfect example of contemporary modern science working with cultural practitioners, because that's what it's going to take here to do that. So we'd like to do that. That would be one of the most ultimate things to achieve in that vision, aside from restoring the landscape around Kawainui.
We started to take out all of these weeds and things, so I mean, with time it'll come back to that, but this wasn't here. All on this side was all still overgrown with hau and other things, so you couldn't actually see Kawainui from here.
Ahui Malamai Kalokai supports the plan. It is not the perfect plan, but it is a plan that we support because it has many of the elements and resources that are needed to restore Kawainui. I just want to reiterate that for people whose argument against our presence here in the plan, because the plan does show us as having a permanent cultural presence on the plan. So we have kauhale shown on the plan. Kauhale are a collection of buildings, small village, Kauhale's village, that are placed in different areas of the marsh, along the rim of, not in the marsh, outside of the marsh, along the perimeter of Kawainui. So it is important to understand that, one, we feel a compelling reason to be here on the land of our ancestors, because our ancestors thrived in this place. They were abundant. There's a village just down below here, a village site for where our kupuna thrived. This was a place of great abundance. So we want to continue that work, to continue that kuleana, that unbroken kuleana of Tumalama Aina, and our presence here is needed, and we want that presence. Now, the plan, aside from showing the different kauhale, provides some resources that are needed. One is the processing area, which you can't see from here. It's blocked by these trees. It is across from the transfer station. The processing area will be the area that will be highly utilized when we start to remove the mat and other vegetation from the interior of the marsh. It'll be hauled off to that area there. There's a boat ramp. There'll be some floating vessels bringing in all of the material, and that material will be repurposed or composted and applied where needed. So it provides that resource. It provides an education center just right off here, about 200 yards from where we stand right now. I think that education center is important. I think if it is handled properly, it could be a really vital component of the plan. And one of the things that I want to point out is for the DOFA, the state, to look at Imiola in Hilo, which is a really good, I think it's Imiloa, sorry, Imiloa, which is a good example of how people can pass through that area and learn how to interpret both the culture and the science. So they educate the people on the culture of this area, they educate the people on the science of this area. So when people leave the education center, they begin to have a deeper understanding of what it is that they're seeing. Otherwise, they're just seeing grass and trees and, you know, some happy people, but it's much, much deeper than that. So for those visitors from afar, they'll begin to learn about our history, our mo'olelo, our stories, about who we are yesterday, who we are today as people, the significance of this place to our people, and the significance of this place to our community. Because all are welcome here. All the work that we're doing today we're not exclusive. Everybody is welcome to support us, and they do. We've had schools, we've had churches, we've had groups, we've had community people, we've had individuals, a handful of people. This has been a community effort led by the Kanaka Maoli, the Hawaiian cultural practitioners, and the thinking that drives us, but we also have on board scientists as well. So this is an excellent example of the marriage of contemporary culture and science. So the plan is a very, very good plan. It provides what we need. There is a boardwalk around the marsh, and there is a series of pathways. I will say that I'm in strong favor of that, because that's how we got from Kauhali to Kauhali in the ancient days. The pathways were our highways and our byways, and I get that same sense when we have pathways through here connecting one Kauhali to another Kauhali to another Kauhali to another Kauhali. So it allows us to walk. It allows us to get out of our vehicles. When we have volunteer work, we have a parking area where people will park as volunteers. They can get out of their car, and now we can walk to the restoration sites instead of driving to the restoration sites. So it provides a lot of opportunities. The parking area that we've asked for, and which has been placed on the map, is to get our people out of harm's way. Right now, all our people park along Kapa'a Quarry Road. There's great risk there. Trucks, buses, cars speeding by. We want to get all of our people off of that road into a safe environment, and the parking areas that have been provided on the plan provide that element of safety that we need. So we are fully supportive. It can be massaged. We can work out the final details, but there is no plan that dots every I and crosses every T. And I think some of the community is expecting that a plan will dot every I and cross every T. But in my involvement in planning, there is no plan that does that. So we have kuka meetings along the way to iron out areas that are gray, or to resolve issues that come up. It is a process, and so this is not the Bible. This is a very good starting point, but if we don't have a plan, we don't start, and if we don't have a plan, then this continues to degenerate into something even far less ideal than we envisioned.
So the legend is that